Who am I?
Yeah.
I am a down south girl from Houston, Texas, born and raised. Um, love entertainment, love everything about, you know, being me and exploring who I am through my craft. Big heart, big personality. I don't play, but I am, but I'm 100% a writer. Like I am spiritual, very spiritual based. Loyal, go hard for mine, and yeah, that's Staci.
Nice. So we have many topics that I want to get into because you are a woman that wear many hats. You know, you're a powerhouse. So
I'm not putting that down sometimes.
So which one came first for you? And I guess we'll just take it from there. Was it the writing? Was it the acting? Was it,
producing? Philanthropy, so many things.
Right. Yeah. Y'all did your homework. Okay.
Yeah. Mentoring.
Yeah, just following too. I was like, damn, Staci does that too.
I was like, wait, you gotta go to that place. Yeah. Great, that's great.
Acting is my first love. When I was 5 years old, I told my mother I wanted to be an actress, and she was like, nah, you should go back in there and pray about that at 5 and then come back and tell me what you heard. I was like, okay. I came back.
I heard Jesus said I should do the audition.
Told me, so I'm gonna be an actress, and that's basically what it's stuck ever since. Going through the journey of that and learning the business. Like when I moved to LA, I was about 24. And officially moving there, it was a very big difference from being in Houston because that world is like, I don't want to say soulless, but it's a kind of a soulless industry. And so, you're
That's
coming
the right
in there.
Word for it.
Yeah. You're like, I'm talented and I know what to do and all this stuff, but there's a lot more than talent that goes into the game. So, that was really got my start in Houston. I would take classes and, of course in school you do theater. That was good things. We was like always creating plays and doing stuff like that and doing a talent show. I was in every talent show, dancing, doing the whole thing. So my love of the arts basically kind of flourished in Houston. And then when I moved to LA, I learned that is not enough. Being talented. Nice.
Yeah. So
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what was because you would share certain things like I have a great memory. You would share certain like headshots, right? And I feel like these headshots you would share in the beginning, you would share like a little story about it, and you'll roast yourself of like the expectations that you had and all that stuff. And coming from an actor as well, like I can relate, and I'm like, wow, this is great. Thank you for sharing your truth. Like, how did you learn to, I guess, take your power back and adjust? That like, okay, what I thought was supposed to be something that about talent, drive, integrity, was something in that world that you wasn't about, and it was like, this is not me, and I'm not just gonna just sell myself. How did you start like maneuvering differently and saying like, hey, it's okay if I don't sell my soul or go this route, at least I'm true to myself?
You know what? The main thing for me was like I was constantly being bombarded with all of these different weird things. Like I remember one time, me and my girl Kiana, we were like fresh to LA. I want to say maybe we had only been there like a year, if that. And we were out and we met this guy, and he was like in talent agent, whatever. And he wanted us to get involved with some work he had, but he wanted us to meet the guy who was funding the thing and that whole thing. So of course, we're not super green. So we're like, nigga, like, okay. Like, so we were like, okay, we'll take this meeting, but of course, to everybody where we were going. So we go up through the Beverly Hills mountains, and we pull up to this really large, extremely large home. So we were like, okay, well maybe this is legit because look at the house and da. So we go into the house, and as soon as we walk in, there's this little skinny black girl coming downstairs, and she's like in a really tight dress. She come downstairs and she breathes fast, and she's like, she breathes fast, and we were like, this don't feel right in my spirit. The way my spirit is crip walking, I feel like this is a problem, right?
Yep.
So real talk, we go upstairs and we meet this old white man. I mean, he old, like he 1 foot out the grave old, like like he the crip people old, like he could die in this conversation old. So we're just like, we're talking to him or whatever. And then, of course, the conversation comes. Now, mind you, it's the black dude that brought us there.
Yeah.
Clearly,
Yeah.
you know, and then the white guy is basically kind of telling us what our duties would be. You know, if we, I was like, duties.
This like
What?
this like the script from Get Out.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm telling you, and we're sitting here like, yo, this is crazy.
Wow.
And then, of course, he slipped in the whole thing about, you know, I'm gonna do a little
Yeah,
ball
yeah.
climbing. A little, he was like,
Oh my God.
like seriously, like that was a real moment in our lives. And I was just like, this is real. Like, this is what people try to do with these girls.
Yeah.
And of course, they take me to see this big house and all.
Mhm.
And obviously, he's wealthy. He got a guest house, you know,
Mhm.
whatever. So they're thinking, you know, you do a little something strange for a piece of change now, and then you do it. But it's just like those things follow you.
Mhm.
So a lot of instances like that were happening, even as I progressed, you know, my career, meeting people of a certain caliber. You're still getting these other weird backhanded, you know, options to do this.
Yeah.
So eventually I was like, I just wish, with so much trial and error, I just wish that I knew what to do when I first came out here. I just wish that there was somebody who would take me under their wing, or who had taken me under their wing. Was like, yo, this is what you should do. You need this for your work. You know, you need this industry standard material. You need this type of a headshot. You need, your resume should look like all the things that you just don't know. And typically you just learn if you paid somebody. But you know, you're in LA, you ain't got no money. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have no money. You get you can audit acting classes, which is a good thing. But you know, those things are few and far in between. And you know, it was just, I kept saying to myself, I was like, I wish there was a program where like girls, minority girls especially, when they come and get into the industry, they just had someone to help guide them and give them the game. And that is
from a genuine and true source.
Exactly.
From and who's been through trial and error. Like, I haven't hit it big yet, you know what I mean? But I've had enough success and trials to give the game.
Exactly.
And so I was like, okay. And so that's when I created Zero Compromise. And it's literally geared towards minority girls and underserved communities that want to pursue a career in entertainment, but may necessarily not know how, don't know how to hone on their skills, and would probably get the BS if they came to LA and would get sucked up, might start stripping, doing whatever just to make money. And what happens is you get taken off of your path. So there's so many options and avenues that you might have to take money, and then you get caught up in that and you're not working towards your craft. And then next thing you know, girls been out there 20 years and they've done nothing but just survive. You know what I mean? And their dream is like, okay, you know what I mean? So
no, with this Zero Compromise, this is very interesting. I didn't know about that. It's a program that you started basically like something that you wished you had when you was entering that world. And we know the inspiration for it, but how has that helped you help others? Like, what did that give to yourself? Do you see yourself as well and the people that you meet?
Well, one way it helped me was I have all this wealth of knowledge that I've learned, you know what I mean? And it's just like, okay, like I want to give this to somebody. I'm not a mother, you know, I have a sister who's following my footsteps. She's an actor as well. But, you know, it's just like, I want to give this to somebody, because obviously you're seeing what's happening in the workplace as far as like with the Me Too movements and all this crazy madness. And a lot of stuff could be avoided if girls weren't like starving to get on, you know what I mean? And to get some help. So for me, it's just like, I wanted to, that's kind of fueled me. It's like, oh, let me just give them the game. Because if I can help them avoid what I've gone through, then it would, you know, it's totally worth it. And then of course, you meet all these amazing young women who have all this talent, and you're just like, dang, like somebody should see them, you know? And even if I can't get them to somebody, I can help them hone that craft and let go of maybe some of the fear and things that they are feeling about their craft and not knowing what to do. You know, some girls be so talented, they just don't know what to do with it though. You know what I mean? They don't know how to get out there and get, you know, any type of assistance. And there's no programs for acting and classes like that. Oh, you want to be an actress? Okay, come get this money. Like there's nobody's doing that. You know what I mean? Yeah, you want to learn how to edit, you want to be a producer, like those, you know, though there's no programs that you have to pay for that stuff. You know what I mean? And so Zero Compromise is pretty much, it's almost like a sorority. You know what I mean? We take girls from 12 to 18, and then they go through the program. They have to have a certain GPA. Like we do require that, you know, school is important. So we require you have a certain GPA. We don't just take anybody, meaning like, if you can't sing, I'm not gonna encourage that, like, because you're not on your path. Okay, that's not your path. So like we don't just take everybody. We definitely take the girls who actually have the talent and the hunger and the drive to do it. GPA, obviously, and then as we recruit, then we start to hone in on education, mentorship, and advocacy for their particular lane in entertainment.
Is this national? Is it national?
Not yet, girl.
Okay.
But we've been trying to get this national recruitment tour going. And we were supposed to do it recently, but COVID hit and it's crazy. So we started with the Boys and Girls Club initially when I was still living in LA, and we were doing workshops. So we had like Terrence J come out and Wesley Jonathan and DJ D-Rec, and I had a lot of different. I started with male celebrities only talking to the girls because I found that young girls genuinely care about what these boys think of them in this age pocket. And if you hear a male celebrity that you watch on TV tell you certain things, it hit a little different. So initially we've been using just males. We will expand and bring in females. Obviously I'm the female of it, but we'll expand and bring in some other females. But the workshops and things of that nature is how we start, and then that's how we recruit. And then we start to kind of narrow it down and find out what their craft is, what they're good at, and then we keep going from there. But yes, national is, we want hubs in every market, focusing strictly on minority girls initially, in the underserved communities, because we are the ones who always fall through the cracks.
Yeah, I'm about to get this sex change. I'm jealous because I grew up in the projects. I wish I had this.
I'm definitely doing a leg for men, because everything's not sports. You know what I mean? They always say put a ball in it, then they can let them go. It's like, no, like you want to sing, that boy can sing.
Exactly. I don't have to have a wicked jump shot and shoot crack.
Right.
Hell no. I wanted to so now we all we know, as being artists, the whole bullshit that comes with this entertainment industry, and something that we have to prepare for and maneuver through it. But I want to go now to the source of it. What was it about the acting that drew you in, or probably fulfilled something that maybe you didn't have growing up, or where did it take you? What did it provide to you in those moments that you fell in love with it?
You know what? I think the first time I fell in love with acting truly was watching The Cosby Show. And, it was just something about the storytelling and how it made me feel, when I would watch this family and these amazing characters and the stories they would tell. And it was just dope to watch. And not to be cliche, like I saw myself, because I never really looked at it like, oh, I see myself on TV. Because in my era, we had a different world. We had Fresh Prince, we had Martin, we had a lot of black shows. We had a lot of black shows. Yeah. So
those are shows that inspired me. I related to it.
Yeah, representation was absolutely there in my younger years, for sure. We lapsed in the last maybe 15 or so, but in my era, representation was there, so I saw it. So it wasn't like, oh, I saw myself as a black kid for the first time. No, it was just these dope characters, and they were telling amazing stories, and it was just like, wow, this is so cool. I'm talented. I would love to do that. And, I got bit by that bug, and, I would recreate plays and scenes that I saw on TV that day. I would recreate the scenes. And, my mom, when we were younger, we would play court. And it was she would create a whole scenario about who was guilty, and me and my brother and my cousins, and we would all have roles. We were attorneys, and we would act out this whole elaborate whodunit. You know what I mean? It was a chance to act and do our thing. So that's really where when I was about 5, just watching shows like The Cosby Show and seeing those images, and it was like, this is really dope. How does this work? You know what I mean? Because you do have no idea. You just see the TV. How does this work? This is cool.
What about acting have you been in theater or film? And if of either one, which one do you prefer? Which one gives you the most passionate feeling?
I did some theater when I was a lot younger. As I got older, it was more towards film and television. But the thing that's beautiful about theater is you can feel the audience's energy. So when you get out on stage and you are in your zone, in your pocket, the audience, you can feel that they are rolling with you. And that's a crazy feeling to have, when you know that you are getting it and people are feeling the story that you're telling and the message. That's kind of it's like a drug. It's just like, oh, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of how I feel like when I do hosting or when I interview. It's that human interaction and telling that story that the talent is telling me, and me being able to pull out all that goodness from them. It's really it's something different. It's really different.
Now the writing.
That's what exactly I was gonna ask
You know,
what led to you writing?
Yeah, I would assume, like, correct me if I'm wrong,
sure.
like, here you are creating Zero Compromise because there was something that you wish you had, right? And then you was inspired by a lot of things that you saw on television. So I feel like, being a writer myself, like, maybe you wanted to create something that you feel like you wasn't seeing anymore, or
and your acting experience too,
and
like
you have
what
these
roles
stories that you want to tell. So what influenced and what inspired your writing, and take us down that journey that sparked it and where it was taking you.
You know, for me, writing, I don't know how I'm a murder mystery buff. Like, I love whodunits. And so, like, growing up, I would always watch like the murder mysteries, and I would have to figure out who did it. And it was just the like I always said, if I wasn't an artist, I would be like a forensic scientist. Like, I just love how people they can find out who killed who with just a strand of hair. It was just crazy. And I was like, this stuff is really cool. And so for me, it was like, ooh, I would love to tell a story like that. So when I was younger in school in English, when you had to write those stories, I would get real flagrant with my pen and just start writing, you know, all type of stuff. And I would get really good grades because, like, my stories were always like crazy, you know what I mean? But they, you know, the whodunits was like always on point. Nobody knew who did it but me. So like, I just like to tell stories. I like to write, and then poetry came about. And so I started writing poetry and wrote a poetry book, and just, you know, just from my experiences too, when you experience so much stuff and you're an artist, like, you got to get it out some kind of way. And so that pen, you know, writing was like, it was maybe therapeutic too, you know, to tell a story that I want to tell that maybe I haven't seen, or I have seen, but I didn't want to tell it that way. I want to tell it my way. So, you know, you write it, you tell it the way you see it through your eyes. And, you know, it's just, so it just takes you to different levels in your craft when you write.
What was your writing I'm sorry, I'm on.
Yeah, go ahead.
What was your writing teaching you when you started doing the poetry of, like, almost self-reflection? Like, what was some things you was learning about yourself? Because I feel like, you know, maybe if we're not as vocals, I feel like we learn more as artists through our work. You know, we're revealing something else, and then we feel naked on stage through our writing. You know, how what was your writing teaching you in those things, when it got, like, personal at times, or when you was writing these beautiful poetry things? I didn't read it, but I know it's beautiful, right?
And where can we find we find your book too after you say that?
So for me, poetry, I've never been big on vulnerability, just because when you've been hurt before or more than once, like, that vulnerable side of you tends to shut down, because you're like, you don't get to do that to me again. You know what I mean? And you kind of put everybody in that box. It's like, yeah, you're not gonna hurt me. Oh, you definitely ain't gonna hurt me. And so, you know, it kind of, that side of me, like the vulnerable side of me, hasn't always been on display.
Gotcha.
And so through poetry, I'm able to be vulnerable and say these things and talk about these things that I probably wouldn't have said to the person, or, you know, in that time, you know what I mean? And so for me, once again, it's therapeutic. It's you get a chance to write about your hurts, you know what I mean? Or your highs, some things that people don't even know about, personal victories for yourself that, you know, you may never share on a public stage, but through the poem you can, and you don't have to say, that's me, that was something I went through, you know what I mean? It's just, it's art, you know? So it's more of it's more of a growth, because you can I can look back from writings when I was like in high school to present day. You can see the growth and the variations of, I was like, ooh, where were you when you wrote this? You was dark, you know what I mean? And then you can see this part, you like, okay, girl, look at you glowing and whatnot. Who was you dating at that time, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, the levels. I have one poem called Ill, and I was like, girl, like, nigga, like, what was this? Who were you trying to kill? Like, it was
that guy who wanted you to play with his old man balls. That's who you wanted to kill.
I forgot to ask how you got out of that shit.
Right. Like, listen.
Did
like,
you run away after that?
It's like, oh, hell no. We not, no, bruh. and they never look good. Like the dude that's trying to get you, he don't look like a Denzel in the 90s. No, he looked like
that's why they're in that house and they're paying for bald tingling.
Yeah, he Uncle Daddy.
No.
You think they could be on Tinder trying to grab that shit up? Hell no.
So next, what's your other? So how did you get involved in producing, and what types of projects did you produce?
So producing came with the Staci Harris show. So back in like 2011 is when I first launched the show in 2011. So we have a 10-year coming up November. But
nice.
It was just a time. It was just a time in life where like in Hollywood, like a lot of things like we weren't being cast for. It wasn't a lot of work for Black folks. And I was having a talk with Jamie Foxx, and I was telling Fox, I was like, there's I'm not getting cast for stuff. I'm not And Jamie, you know how Jamie talks, he said, man, listen, you motherfuckers think you ain't got to do nothing. He was like, you need to create something of your own. And I was just like, huh. You know, he was like, anything, YouTube, do something. He said, you always got good eyebrows. He said, nigga, do a tutorial on eyebrows. He was like, whatever it is, he was like, you need to just create something of your own. And I created the Staci Harris show. And then this one was Fox was actually doing Foxhole on Sirius XM. So he actually connected me with his person that would do the show. And then we got to do like a pilot episode at the office and all that stuff. And so that kind of like sparked me to, and I mean, the pilot didn't work out because, you know, Fox stopped with the whole this situation. But anyway, long story short, it sparked me to keep going and to do it on my own. So then I started doing it. I had no idea what I was doing, but I figured it out and got a little studio through the homies in North Hollywood. And at the time I knew some names. And so I got the call the homies to come on. My girl Kiana was learning how to edit and film. So she came out and filmed. And we literally just hustled that thing and put it together. And she, we started to create, as we grew in it, we were getting logos and we just started doing all this stuff. Everything you've seen, Staci Harris show is completely in-house. Me and my girls. And we just really created something really dope. And so I'm mad at myself because I stopped doing it for a few years. Like I think I want to say 2014, I stopped for a few years. And the only reason why I stopped is because I really didn't know what I was doing as far as getting sponsorship and how to really market it and produce and get it out there. And so I was just like, I hated having to constantly utilize my friend's time for free. And I felt so bad, but nobody was complaining. I was just in my head, right, you know what I mean? And my show was out before there was a Breakfast Club, before any of that stuff.
I remember that.
Yeah, and everybody see my boys and my friends are like, girl, you should have kept going because if you would have stayed in that pocket, you would have gotten that hit. You know what I mean? But when I came back doing it, it was like maybe 2017 or something. We started doing our shows again, so it was just like, and by then you had all of everybody was popping up with shows and podcasts, and it was just like, girl, you had the blueprint. You were out there doing it and had names. I had Neo. I had everybody coming through. You know what I mean? And I was so mad, but it's okay. It's still my baby, and it's still something that I'm actively reconstructing and reworking every time I do a show. I don't do them as often as I used to, but with the Corona Cocktail Hour, I started doing them on a more regular basis when Corona hit. And there's some things in the fire for Staci Harris shows. So
I think honestly, the beautiful thing with that, everything happens for a reason, but the beautiful thing with that is that when you started this thing came out of a pure place, out of creation that you got some guidance from Jamie, and Jamie didn't have to tell you that, and then you took it on and you did it the rest along with your friends. It was like a labor of love. It was, and it didn't start off okay, Jamie, I'm gonna take this idea. Oh, sponsorship. How do I want to get there? It wasn't money fed, and it came from a pure source. And that's why you did it for so many years. And belief. That's why you did it for so many years. And at the end of the day, I congratulate you for doing that because because that's awesome. It shows that you was hungry for it. You created a platform for yourself and your friends, and you guys did it. And at the end of the day, whether you had sponsorship or not, you guys were successful. You were successful because you made something from a conversation, and now made it and took it to a whole nother level.
And it opened doors for me. It really did.
Yeah.
It opened doors for me. I was starting to cover red carpets, and I was getting in certain rooms with other individuals just because I had a little body of work that I could show that I was doing, and it was crazy. It was crazy because I remember the first time that I got recognized off of my show. I was flying through. I had to stop in Charlotte, and they was like, "Staci Harris." I was like, "Yes."
That's big.
Because in that point, you're like, I am not famous. How do you know me, sir?
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, I see your show. Your show is dope." I was like, "You sing your show?" And at that moment, I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, people actually pay attention. Not too long ago, a few years ago, maybe like a year or so ago, I was at a party in LA anyway, it was at a party in LA. And it might have been 2 years ago, but anyway, and this girl asked me, she was like, "You do the Staci Harris show. I love that show." Like, it was still on, and I was like, And I've had people, on rare occasions here and there ask me about the show you still doing. I was just like, I should probably get back to doing this show because
you get messages. You get messages about
they
it.
Watching.
I think you should start doing it and let it come from a pure
they
place.
was watching.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, of everything that you do, what has been one of the major challenges you've had, and what you learned from that?
Major challenge is patience and consistency.
Definitely.
Because I am a creative, my mind is always, and so I have to really be like, "Staci, that's not, you need to wait on that and finish this out or see what happens with this." But I get these ideas all the time. Like, I have a whole thing of just ideas. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, I have to bring myself back in and be like, "Wait a minute, that's not how we're going to do this. Like, hold on." And then, be patient in letting the project, the maybe 2 or 3 projects I'm actively working on, see themselves through, and then pick up something else, because my patience level it's still a work in progress. The consistency for me, consistency for me is different. Like, I'll always work, always, but the consistency is being consistent in a project. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always
take one thing.
I'm going to consistently work and get stuff going, but it's like, you have to stay consistent with 1 or 2 things and not multitask the world, because that doesn't get anything done. You know what I mean? So that's been the hardest part for me. And then really just being a full-time entrepreneur. Like, that's, with SLH Entertainment, which is my parent brand, like, that's like, you gotta survive. Like, that's a full-time job. So that's another thing, is just really being I'm a legitimate 100% entrepreneur. I don't have another job. I don't have any of that. So that has been a challenge in itself too.
I was gonna ask you, what keeps you motivated to keep going, in the sense of, like, you hear someone that have a lot of connection, knows a lot of people. I'm a name drop: Kevin Hart, Marlon Wayans, all these people say, Jamie Foxx, and the list goes on. And in this industry as well, we have this natural thing of, like, yes, I had my moments, my opportunities, and it's great, but when's that shot for me? You know what I'm saying? And you're around that, and you're not asking for any handouts, because you're grinding it out just like all your peers grinding it out. How do you stay motivated and hungry and humble to keep going through this type of climate? Like, you know what I'm saying? And counting your blessings, right? Because we might have this big this big dream in our heads, and this idea, and it may not go that way, right? Like,
it typically doesn't.
Right. It may take you somewhere else that's still fulfilling too as well. You just hope that you are open to see that the blessings on that road too, rather than like be gung-ho about this one straight vision that you're going 100 miles per hour.
Yeah. What was the top of the question again?
So how do you stay hungry? Yeah. My fault. Yeah. How do you stay hungry and motivated, especially with all these peers around you? Like, yo, when's my next shot?
So I think for me, the motivation is, like, I think one thing is important. Everybody should know their purpose. Like, once you know your purpose and know what you're here for and what you are called to do, it's a game changer, because now it doesn't mean that you're always like getting up and like, my purpose, I know it. Yes, honey, purpose today. Like, sometimes you know your purpose, but you be like, when is purpose gonna show up on my doorstep? I'm tired. So, but I think that is like the first thing is to know your purpose, because once you know your purpose, it is a game changer. Now you're able to focus on the things that align with your purpose instead of being very scattered. So that helps you to stay focused. And then that also draws the things to you that, you know, is inside of you. Typically, when you are, everything is aligned, your energy is pulling the things that are supposed to come to you versus everybody. And because somebody like me who can do a lot of things, I'd be pulling stuff to me that I don't have any business doing, but because I can do it, it's like, oh, I should do that. It's like, no, you shouldn't. That's dumb. You know what I mean? That does nothing for you. You know, so that's the main thing, is like really know my purpose helps me to stay hungry. And then I'm surrounded, like everybody I know is somebody, and they are wealthy. That gives me, it's like, you're surrounded by this. You've been surrounded by most of your career. You're going to hit it. You're gonna hit. You just have to stay focused. You can't be afraid to open up. Like when I was younger, when first getting into the game, I would be afraid to ask, you know, Marlon something about whatever. You know what I mean? And it's just like,
why not?
Why? You know what I mean? Because I was always like, well, I don't want him to think that I'm trying just to be, I'm his friend because he's da 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 da. You know what I mean? But what I've learned over the years is that people aren't stupid as you think they are. Like they can pick up on who is in their space for whatever reason. You know what I mean? Like that's a thing, you know? So it's just like, you've never once given him a reason to feel like you out here trying to hustle him. You know what I'm saying? He's actually hired you to work on several occasions. So it's just like, ask this man, tell me what you know what I mean? Like, and now obviously we're super close now. So it's a different conversation. But initially I was just like, I'm not gonna ask him all that. I'm gonna just sit right here and say, hey to the wings. Like, I'm not gonna do nothing. But, you know, that's another thing, too, is not being afraid when you have this wealth of information around you and powerhouses around you to get what you can, because they're there to give it, too. Mom will sit there and tell you everything you need to know. He will tell you, you know what I mean? So
that was something that, I mean, I don't know Kevin Hart personally, but his transparency in interviews, that's something that I always loved, where he said, like, you know, what you said, like, ask the questions. And he's the type of person that what he was stating, that he doesn't mind sharing, because at the end of the day, he's not going to hold it from you. It's up to you what you could do for it. You know,
Kev will tell you.
But at the end of the day, it has to come from you. And that was something that I thought that was, you know, beautiful, especially helping one another. It's like, give all this information out. But at the end of the day, don't point the finger at me. Point the finger on you. If you how beneficial was that for you, in a sense, like you building these relationships, right? Because I know, like, they always say, like, don't ever meet your idols or people, celebrities, because, you know, they could be assholes, right? I have my occasions with that. And just, at the end of the day, I'm just like, I'll stay in my lane, you know what I'm saying? But you have these healthy relationships. How, how was that beneficial for you, knowing that, like, okay, this person wasn't actually a dick to me. Like, he actually shared certain things that he didn't have to share. Like, Kelly Stewart, we had her on, and she shared her relationship with Cedric the Entertainer, and like he gave her advice on certain things about her show. And to me,
Ced's giving me advice too. He's done my show.
It's just like I put a smile on my face, because these are people that I saw on television. I'm like, man, I hope that if I'm ever around them, they are not like, when the cameras are off, something totally different. It'll be disappointing. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, yo, your spirit is dark right now, not humble at all. I don't want to be around that energy. So how was that for you, like being around people like that and be like, oh wow, like they're actually cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to the ones that I've wanted to meet, the ones that I've wanted to forge relationships with, I've been able to. And they've been pretty kind to me, you know what I mean? And have looked out. It's not always the case, but for the ones that I have still in my life and in my circle, like those are the ones that actually have lended an ear or lended a hand. Or, you know, I always go back and I credit Marlon. Marlon didn't know me from a can of paint, but I got up enough courage to ask him to let me interview him. This is right after I had talked to Fox about I started my show. I was like, okay, I need a celebrity. And I had just met Marlon at a party he had. And so he was so nice and so cool. And I was just like, he was fine. So I was like, he's fine. let me see if mom, you know, and I asked the homies, I was like, I think he would do it. And he was with his friends. They're like, yeah, just ask him. I was like, okay. And so I asked him, and Marlon was like, he was like, all right. He's like, you got 20 minutes. So I came to his house. I had my camera guy. And that 20 minutes turned into 2 hours. Like we went outside, sat outside. We were in the sunset outside too in the backyard, and he gave me the best interview. And I was like, I just interviewed Marlon Wayne. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's those type of things that, you know, would happen. And as I got more comfortable, I was able to, you know, push the envelope a little more and be like, can you do this? And can I get on this? And, you know, they don't always say yes, but you know, those type of things you kind of just have to do and push yourself to do when you're trying to get in the game, because, you know, the career is yours and yours alone. And so I've definitely been very beneficial of the relationships that I do still have. I mean, and most of the celebrities that I have met, talked to, interviewed, even if I don't have like the everyday relationship, I can still reach out and be like, hey, can I interview you, or can I do this, or can, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have one negative. I don't have really anything negative to say about anybody. You know what I mean? Like, there's not one of them that I couldn't reach out or some kind of way, if I don't still have their contact, find them and be like, yo, I need whatever. So
before we go to our last segment, I just want to ask them one last thing. But, you know, it's from this story and this journey that you shared, it is that you've been this person that through it all kept on going, you know, asking questions, fighting through the trials and tribulations, learning about yourself,
trying everything,
learning from all these, learning from these, putting on these hats and stuff like that, making connections. I want to know, you know, when you look back, you know, on and reflect on all of this, like, what is something that stands out about you that you probably didn't like even took a chance to like reflect? Because sometimes we could always, we don't give enough. Go. We don't even give ourselves enough credit sometimes to take a step back to look back like, wow, I did a lot. So it just in this story, like that you shared from us, I'm like,
when I'm hearing myself talk, I'm like, go okay, friend.
And I feel like we need to give ourselves our own roses and smell them, because we always giving flowers to everybody else, but we never really take a moment to give ourselves flowers. And just hearing your story, I'm like, wow, Staci, like, you know, just from what I saw and you shared of our small conversations, I'm like, it was a whole nother layer to you that I'm like, wow, you're a powerhouse. And like, you know, kudos to you and congrats. And I'm super proud of you for everything you've done. Like, like what do you see in yourself, like, after hearing after all this and just taking a moment, like, yo, like, damn.
I think the main thing is I am strong in love. Like, I am strong. Like, I don't think you realize how strong you are until life kicks you in the face with a cleat. And I mean, not one time, not 2 times, not even 3 times. You just get kicked in the face like a UFC fighter. Like, I mean, like kickboxing with my face. I mean, just like that's and the bounce back. Like, I've been homeless more than once. I mean, I've been up, I've lost everything more than once. Like the journey to greatness is not easy. And, you know, the strength that it takes, like, you got to be a gangster. Like, that's a whole other level of strength that, you know, man, I give all credit to God, because I don't know. There's a lot of times I was like, yeah, I'm out of here. Like, this ain't gonna work for me. Like, I can't. There's not another day I'm gonna live like this. You know what I mean? But obviously, I'm not gangster enough to kill myself. I don't have that in me. I'm a punk in that area. I'm not doing that.
How beneficial was your faith in this throughout this whole process? You know.
Oh, you know what? The thing about,
because we respect all religions, but, you know, like, you know, for you, it seemed like that also played a big factor in your life. So how beneficial was that in your journey throughout everything, personal, entertainment, all that?
Yeah, you know what? The thing about that is, like, when you're young and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and, you know, you come from a family that's, you know, a spiritual base, and Christian is our foundation. And so you come from a spiritual base, But it's different when you're at home and you're at your mama house and everybody they having you do X, Y, and Z, and you do it because you're at your mama house.
Yeah.
And then there's another level to your walk that you have to do alone. You know what I mean? And when I got to LA, obviously I had a foundation, but you just start getting caught up in this LA life and all the things that come with it. And you get tested and you lose on some things and you take some L's. And then life starts to really just, it just goes on this crazy roller coaster. And it's for me, it was what I needed to get back to one. Like I've had that moment where I was like at the lowest, bawling, trying to figure it out. And it's that side of me that kicked in and was just like, you know who you are. You know who's on the inside of you. You need to go back home. And not home like back to Houston, but you need to go back home to what you know. Yeah. And that's how we gonna get through this. And those type of moments you have to take hold of and really let them lead the way. And it can't just be a moment anymore. It has to be a life. It has to be a part of your life. Like you have to, for me, I have to give him the first of my day. Even if I don't get up till late in the day, the first of my day is him. I sit and I watch a message or a sermon. I do something that feeds me spiritually, that helps me to align with the purpose for that day and for moving forward. And I refuse to have a day that he doesn't exist in it. That's just me. So that, and then because when you're in alignment with him, you can hear, you hear more clearly. Things pop up in your spirit, just like boom, I didn't even think of that. Something so simple that you've been trying to figure out work wise, and then it drops in, and you're like, you know what I mean? And so those type of things that I need, I have to have. And then obviously I'm a single woman. I'm not married or anything like that, so I can only rely on me and him, and that's it for the most part. I have a family, parents that are still together and all that good stuff, but I'm a 40-year-old woman. I live by myself in another city, and so I have to have a support system that I can rely on, and that's him. And so knowing that just how good he's been to me and how he's kept me through a lot of things. And I look back and be like, how in the Jesus name did I get through this? Out of that? Like, that's what we were doing. Oh, you was a whole fool. Oh, you was real special. Like, you know what I mean? And so it's looking back and then actually having these conversations and thinking like, man, I did a lot. Like, man, he's gifted me so much. You know what I mean? And so, I've taken some L's and I've taken some wrong turns, and I've moved out of fear in a lot of areas, which I think has delayed some of my process to greatness. But the thing about a journey in entertainment, or just any journey, it doesn't end. It doesn't end until you like breath. So for me, it doesn't end. It will never end until I die. Yeah. So I used to get caught up on time and being like, oh man, I'm about to turn 40 and I still have like there is no clock for this, because it doesn't end until you do. You know what I mean? So like for me, if I don't hit until I'm 50, that is not what we're doing. But until I'm 50, then that's when I hit. You know what I mean? And hopefully these genes are preserved, and we hang in there.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it's gonna hit when it hits for you, but it's already been hitting, girl. Man. You've been hitting with a bat, 3 bats, 5 bats. You've been hitting a lot. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna hit the way you wanted to hit in due time, and but at the end of the day, you're doing this all out of love, because you still could tell too. That's like, true. You want. You want the financial security from it, and all that stuff. Who doesn't, right? But at the end of the day, the main source from all this, you getting up out of bed and doing all this stuff, is because you want to do it. You love to do it, and there's a passion behind it. And as long as you always forever have
back
that,
too.
Yeah, exactly. You're giving back. You don't have to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not doing that.
Giving to me.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's so beautiful,
So our last segment is called Rapid Fire, where we have 4 questions, and it's whatever comes to your mind, or it could be long or whatever, but it's just whatever comes to your mind. 4 questions, and here we're gonna go. The first question is, what has been your biggest disappointment?
Biggest disappointment? Fully rapid fire, huh? Um, biggest disappointment is probably just wasted time I've wasted on things that were meaningless that didn't matter.
Gotcha.
Like,
Right.
yeah.
What single thing would improve the quality of your life and money is not an option?
That would improve quality. Probably, I'm in my phase now where I genuinely want love, like a real one. You know what I mean? I think having a purpose mate, like I love this that you guys are doing this together. Like having a purpose mate, a partner, I think that would drastically change the trajectory of just my focus. And because it's one thing to work always on your own, but and come home to you, which is cool. Trust me, I love me, but like
Yeah.
I've been with me for a very long time. You know what I mean? And so now it's just like I'm finally in a space where it's like I would like to have that love, that real love. Like if it ain't real, you can stay where you at. But like that
Mary J, real love.
Yeah, that purpose mate. You know what I mean?
Mary J, Method Man type love.
Yeah, come on, man. That enhances my life. Because I'm fine. Like, we don't get any act up now. You know what I mean? Like we ain't desperate, but it's just that really good purpose mate. I think that would be dope.
Nice.
What do you consider your greatest achievement?
My show, Staci Harris show. I think that was something that I did that came out of nowhere, and it would actually hit. It was for the time that we did it on a consistent basis. It was a success and is success. And I think that's probably my greatest achievement because it's consistent. 10 years, but to go 10 years.
And the last question is: what is the most important lesson life has taught you?
Patience. Patience is a virtue. And when you are patient, it keeps you from making a lot of mistakes. It keeps you from jumping the gun and making a mistake. It keeps you, patience is just, it's something that is, it's well deserved when you've actually mastered it. You know what I mean? It's a gift, and I'm hoping that I can master it. I've grown a lot in my patience, but I know there's still some areas in my life where I'm not very patient. And I think patience we gotta let patience have its perfect work.